What up, what up, what up? Welcome back, man. Listen, it is nice to be back. You know what I mean? I've made a lot of content as of recently, but I'll be real with you. I've been working out some ideas inside of my head and trying to, get some things locked down. So I appreciate y'all being here. I appreciate y'all being subscribed. If you ain't subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you like the content. We're going to get down to business. This here is neoliberalism from the beginning. I wrote some stuff down because I wanted to organize my thoughts a little bit. Let's get to it. The idea of what neoliberalism is has gotten a lot of attention as of recently, with even academia studying its ins and outs. I'd like to throw my hat in the ring with them and give my take on the history and origins of this idea economically and socially. First, I think we need to must take a trip back to the beginnings of this idea we call liberalism. Liberalism comes out of what we call the Enlightenment, which in turn comes out of the Renaissance. Thinkers such as Machiavelli, Montesquieu, Voltaire, Locke, Smith, Luther, Paine, etc., all had their fingerprints in this process. The process really, in essence, was a way for merchants and nobles to divorce their nations and communities to become world travelers. This process, as most things at last, was a necessity. As technologies improved, the age of exploration expanded our reach, and yields got larger. The class of people traveling and buying and selling as a percentage of the population grew. This class, now referred to as the merchant class, became insanely wealthy. The merchant class transformed Europe and America from the period of 1500 to 1800, where the urbanized trading hubs gained 15% of the total population. During this period, the idea of the state became the preeminent ideology due to the divorce of the Catholic Church from England, yielding a total bureaucratic state in England, which allowed for more centralized power in the state itself. The turn from the Enlightenment to liberalism came when the crop yields from across the Atlantic caused landowning nobles and merchants to begin to care about trade as well as agriculture and property. The need for suffrage for the middle class became a priority. The revolutions in America and France forced the issue, and liberalism was in full swing. The beginnings of liberalism saw thinkers such as Jefferson, who seen the ideas of keeping religion and agriculture as the basis for middle and lower class humans, tying them to the land and keeping them with the basis by which to live their lives. During the 1800s and early 1900s, the migration and expansion of the North and South American continents caused massive migrations out of Europe and into the cities and heartlands of the Americas, causing a need for government intervention into the lives of citizens as the elderly found themselves with no one to care for them. As all the young left the old world in the east coast of North America, heading west. During the 1800s and early 1900s, the Industrial Revolution and the development of industry seen people shift from agriculture to factory work in cities. The population urbanized at an alarming rate from 1790 at 5% to 40% in 1900. This brought with it the end of classical liberal policies, with universal suffrage coming in 1920. The progressive era in full swing as the world wars broke out, new forms of government and economics were on the rise. Fascism, communism, socialism all showed up on the scene. Wait, here we go. Yeah, all right. Yeah. All showed up on the scene from 1910 to 1940. As the Great Depression hit worldwide, they ended up, hit worldwide. Man, listen, I'm getting tired. And the governments of Europe and the United States needed to find a way to shield the people from the harsh realities of competition in the markets. Union struggles, social programs, subsidies all came to be building a massive middle class of industrial and management workers. After the world fought two world wars, the communism and liberal capitalism stood with nuclear weapons pointed at each other. One a sea power of an unassailable size, the other a land-based Goliath with endless population. As the communists built up industry and experimented with new ways of organizing a market, the liberal capitalists bribed the entire world and its workforce with exponential growth, the dreams of a house and children, retirement, food, wealth, and entertainment. A new respect offered to its people, nationalism and reverence for the family, safety among the woods and flowers. Propaganda thrown from each side to vilify the other. After the world wars, there was economic alliances, or as I like to call them, bribes, made to other nations. By the United States and Britain. We agreed to maintain our currency at $43 an ounce and tradability for other countries and free trade in the United States with its boundless populations and appetites. In 1971, this all ended in the period we knew as neoliberalism began, or did it? I want to pose an earlier point and a different principle for the thought of neoliberalism. Now, as we discussed earlier, the idea of liberalism was freedom from the merchant class, freedom for the merchant class and from kings and nations and communities. But the people, the mass of humanities, had other things to do. They toiled in the fields or worked building things. The wives took care of the families. Communities remained intact, and there was local governments and free association. Free association. It's a small thing, but it really means everything. It's your church. It's your church, associations, guilds, unions, political parties, families. This ended far before any of us thought it did. Beginning with the Roosevelt farming reforms, culminating in the Civil Rights Act and the destruction of unions. Forced busing, mass divorce, women in the workforce, gay rights, and trans pronouns. These are all neoliberal policies aimed at forcing as many human beings into the workforce as possible without barriers. The destruction of union jobs was one of the most important parts of neoliberalism to allow for mass migration and lowering wages. The ideas of forcing as many human beings into the workforce to build a number based on the measure called gross domestic product. Let's see here. The number began as GNP, gross national product, at the Bretton Woods. GNP is the total value of all final products turned out by a country by the means of productions owned by a country's residents. As the United States was the last country with manufacturing of scale still standing, we produced the entire world's good during the post-war period. And even though we had a baby boom, we had a problem with lacking workers, because half the populations who were females didn't work, and the blacks had their own greenhouse economy. They both needed to be folded in to allow more expansion and more profits. This began the long march of accepting everyone into the workforce and forcing the entire population to forget its cultures, dialects, religions, and family ties for the sake of participating in the economy. This is where the ideas of wokeism come from today. These academic ideologies are corporatist mentalities that help keep down labor costs and to create better office workers. The reason for this mentality came from the 23% rise in consumer goods from 1965 to 1970, culminating in Richard Nixon ending the gold backing of the dollar in 1971. The Civil Rights Act and the Universal Divorce Act were both passed during this period. The idea of neoliberalism came to be due to all the foundations laid before it. Now, I know this is history, and rarely do historical events begin with a single point, but the foundations, I think, are important. I'm not saying there's a plan or there's some Illuminati at work twirling their mustaches, smoking a cigar, petting a bald cat, but all things have a basis. Nothing is created out of whole cloth. All things happen because other events or changes took place. And this is my take on neoliberalism, where it comes from, and how it actually started. And I think we need to have a conversation about the social and cultural aspects of it, and not just the economic basis and the policy diagrams that come from the government, because this is a much bigger thing than we think it is. I'm Tom Pease with Pnoid News. If you like this content, do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe. If you want to, argue with me, argue in the comments. I'll holla at y'all. Peace be like one. I'm out.